All right, got a couple of tips in here for today. So I did not realize this. So I've been using QR codes on some of our stuff and some of my leaders lift stuff, and it
Hmm.
always hit me and said, "Well, if they pull this up on their phone, how are they going to scan the QR code with their phone to get to the website, right?" And
Right.
so it was just this thing, and I did not realize that this had happened. And this is an article from 9 to 5 Mac, and they called it a PSA, public service announcement. You can open a QR code on your iOS device without scanning it. All you have to do is tap and hold on the QR code, and you get a menu that pops up. And one of the options is
Really?
open in Safari or whatever it is. I tested this last night on one of my QR codes to like one of our blog posts that we did.
Hmm.
Yep, works like a charm. This tip to me is worth like $1 million because not really. I wish. If enough of you want to go read my articles that it generates $1 million in revenue, go ahead, right? But just to be able to do this, I'm going to start putting this on the actual right underneath the QR code because I always put the website address in case somebody just needs to go to it. I'm going to
Hmm.
replace that and just say, if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, tap and hold to go to the website, right? I mean,
Yeah.
super simple. Did you know that this was available?
I didn't know, and I'm always lecturing people about because so we have our QR code to the company built into our logo, right? On the retail bags, we build we have a QR code in the logo, and when I tell people, hey, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, blah blah blah, just scan that label, and they always go to take a picture of the label. I'm like, no, 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 don't do that because you can't get to it that way. I didn't realize that this was even a thing. I mean, this is
Yeah.
like the best tip of the year.
Yeah. And this came up while I was at my grandma's. Is my grandma and my uncle, they were saying, well, how on an iPhone do you go to a QR code? And I said, well, you just hold the camera up to it
Right.
and then it'll pop up a little yellow thing. And he says, well, I do it differently on my Android phone. I'm like, yeah, 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 that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but on the iPhone, right, if you put your camera over it, you don't have to take the picture. Just scan it. It'll put a little yellow box around it, right? And then tap
Mhm.
on the yellow link that pops up. And he's like, oh. So
So
yeah.
I'm wondering if this is possible on older versions of iOS too, and maybe Android
Uh
too. Because I do get a lot of Android phones, you know, and a lot of people have that QR code thing turned off. I don't know if it's off by default or for some reason they turn it off. So a lot of Android users they just can't scan that QR code. So I'm wondering if yeah, maybe I could just start telling people, oh, go ahead and take a picture of it. Just tap on it and hold it.
Yeah, because that's where mine
I'm gonna
was.
do
Mine
some
was an
testing.
image, right? It was the downloaded image from Canva, which is where I do all of our image stuff. It was
Hmm.
that downloaded image in my photos library that I pulled up and just tap and hold. And I'll test it on. I've got my grandma had a old iPad Mini. I think it's even older than my mom's iPad that would run like
Hmm.
iOS 12 point something. I think this one's even older. So I'll see if it works
Okay.
on there, and I'll
Yeah,
try and remember
let's
to do
test
that
that
real
out
quick.
on
But
older devices
yeah,
and see. But yeah, I'm always like stopping people like, no, 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 a picture's not gonna work. You have to, and then I go around the counter and I'll grab their phone and I'm like, no, scan it like this, and I tap on it and yeah, it's always a whole thing. So if this works on older devices or more devices, this will help me out a lot.
yeah. So let's we'll see if we can test that. I'm actually just looking to see um yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So Jason, do you want to talk through this next one because you prompted this one? And I thought, yeah, I'm good. But go ahead, you can tell the story.
Right. So I'm always conscious of texting great. I'm a night person, right? Me being up to 3 a.m. On a normal day, even if I have to be up early in the morning, is normal for me. So, and that's when I can get a lot of work done. I'm usually working on an episode or outlining an episode or adding my notes in for Greg's episode or something like that. So I'm always conscious of in the notes, if I add Greg's name, it'll send him a notification and say, "Hey, Jason asked a question or made a change or whatever." And the same thing with texting. I'm always conscious about texting, but the good thing about Greg is I'll go to the messages and it'll say at the bottom, Greg has notifications silent. So I'll say, okay, I can text Greg all I want. He'll get it in the morning time, right? But this particular time, he didn't have it on, or at least it didn't appear at the time. Or maybe you turned it on after you got the notification. I'm not sure, but I didn't see it. And I'm like, hey, sorry to text you so late, but if you want to basically hopscotch an episode because you had outlined your episode, we can go ahead and do that and use next week's episode. I'm fine. And you replied back like, hey, no, I got it. I'll be working on it in the morning. So I didn't want to disturb him on his break too. Greg, he needs to relax. So I didn't want to have any show, any business, anything going on this weekend. So I always feel a little bad, but man, I thought like this would be a cool feature to have to send messages silently, right? If you have that night bird in your family or the early right, like I'm a night person, but I'm not a morning person, and my brothers are, and man, they go at it in the morning, just like 6 a.m. in the morning. Messages are flying back and forth, and it annoys me. Yes, I need to have a focus mode, but wouldn't it be a cool feature if we can send messages silently, right?
Yeah.
I can just send a message and say, hey, this is no big deal. I don't need a response back right away. Just send it quietly and it'll show up on your phone, but not notify you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I use this just so everybody knows. Jason's also an hour ahead of me from a time zone standpoint,
Right, right.
right? And so I worry about this when my grandkids wake me up at 5:30 in the morning, and then I see Jason's message, and I was just looking back to that thread. So you sent it at 12:30 my time. I don't know why it wasn't showing that I was in sleep focus, but then
Yeah,
I
it
sent
didn't
my
have it.
reply at 6:12 a.m. my time.
Yeah,
So Jason said sent his message at a time I wasn't going to read it, and then I sent my reply at a time Jason wasn't going to read it.
right.
So, you know, I think it's fine. There's a whole lot of discussion that could be had, and that's not for us to decide about. What are the societal norms? What's courteous? What's not? And I think that's why the sender doesn't have the option, unless they want to override. Right? The sender doesn't have the option of dictating whether it's a notification or not. It's all on the receiver to do
Right,
that. And I think
right.
that's the right thing. Do you remember back when we used to have to pay for text messages by those sent and those received? And it's
Yes,
like, okay, come on, why am I paying for text messages received? I can't control that. And I think it's funny that on my hotspot I got a bill for a text message that came in on my hotspot because it's just a phone line, right? And so
right,
people can send messages to it. And I looked at my bill and there was like a 10-cent charge for a text message received because of course I don't have a text messaging package on the hotspot.
right.
And that just reminded me back of those old days when we used to have to monitor that kind of stuff. So I think it's good that it's on the receiver to be able to manage a lot of that kind of stuff because
Mhm.
otherwise, I mean, it's voting season and all that kind of stuff, and the political stuff is just all
Right,
over. And for whatever reason, Dustin, when he signed up to vote or whatever in Texas the last time, put my phone number for all of this
right.
stuff. And so I'm getting
Oh,
all
and
these things that
Texas is
say,
real spammy.
hey, Dustin, this is so and so with this and this. Can we count it? And it's just like, stop,
Yes.
stop, right? So anyway, yeah, but
Yeah,
no,
Texas is real spammy when it comes to political stuff, and they share the information, right,
yeah,
from one candidate to another. So one candidate you have no interest in, he'll be hitting you up the next season because he got
yeah,
you're on the list from the previous,
yeah. So, but this is, we talked about this early on. If communication is really the center of these devices, the more controls they can give us, the better off,
right,
right? And so, anyway,
right.